Hallo,
Ja,
wie ist es jetzt?
mal gucken.
Hallo, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Da war es wieder kurz.
Okay, scheiße. Immer noch?
Ja,
Jetzt immer noch?
nee,
Oder immer noch?
nee. Jetzt passt's.
Ja, perfekt. Gut.
Mit Schwung.
Ja, was ich sagen wollte mit meinem Fußzeh.
Ja,
Da links, wo der Daumenfußzeh ist, ne, beim rechten Fuß. Link auf der Seite. Da, wenn du Richtung Schienbein gehst, gleich davon ist so irgend so eine Beule entstanden. Irgendwie voll der Schmerz, richtig krasser Schmerz. Ich kann mich kaum bewegen nur noch. Ich humpel nur noch rum.
was
Okay,
passiert?
Ruckmittel, Schmerz. Hab Schmerzmittel genommen, ging es ein bisschen besser. Keine Ahnung, einfach so. Falsch drauf geschlafen oder so. Das war so schlimm vorhin, ich hab rumgeschrien, halber. Konnte mich nicht mehr halten.
Aber es
Ehrlich, der
passiert doch
Schmerz.
nicht einfach so.
Ja, es ist aber einfach so gekommen, Bruder. So, was soll ich dir sagen? Bin aufgestanden, da war's so. Bin weder
Ja,
irgendwo hingeknallt, irgendwo hin.
knallen.
Ja, bin irgendwo hingestoßen oder so. Geknallt, nee. Gestoßen, weder irgendwo. Jetzt wolltest du mit Kühlung immer mit mir reden, ne? Deine CPU wird viel zu heiß, deswegen frisst die.
Ja, warte, ich mach noch kurz Aim-Routine. Dann lass gucken, oder? Wegen
Ja,
Kühler.
ja.
All right. Twice a week. That's all you need to do. And it's not theory because I've done it. You change your life, literally, with that and a good diet. So the whole time thing, excuses, it's not relevant. I'm not listening. You don't need a lot of time.
Welcome to the Huberman Lab podcast.
Hoffentlich bleibt der Sound normal. Hattest du heute gute Runden? Hey,
we discuss science and science-based tools for everyday life. I'm Andrew Huberman, and I'm a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. My guest today is Dorian Yates. Dorian Yates is a legendary 6-time Mr. Olympia winner who is also considered one of the greatest pioneers of training methods for bodybuilding, health, and fitness. He is known for using and recommending low-volume, high-intensity workouts, meaning very few sets done with maximal focus, perfect form, and directed muscle engagement taken to muscular failure and beyond. Today, Dorian teaches us how the typical person who is not interested in competitive bodybuilding should train for health and fitness and overall best results. We cover muscle building, fat loss, mobility, what forms of cardio are best, when to do them, and much more. The advice Dorian provides today is immensely valuable and applicable to everyone, men, women, young, and old. He explains how for most people, the best muscle building and strength results will be achieved by training no more than 3, and in some cases only 2 days per week. Dorian also shares valuable insights on how to mentally frame and navigate your life and goals, how to use your hardships as fuel, there's a lot to say about that based on his own experience, but also how to recognize and lean into your natural strengths, how to be practical in choosing what dreams you chase, and how to know when to pivot from one endeavor to another. We also discuss cannabis. In fact, even though I, of course, knew he was, Dorian and I first connected because of an episode that I did about cannabis, both the potential benefits of cannabis as well as the very serious risks that may exist for certain people. Dorian's experience in reading the data on cannabis contrasted with mine, and that led us to an ongoing discussion that we continue today on the podcast, and that has me now leading into some newer studies, and I promise that I'll update everyone on my take of those studies once I get through them. Oh yes, and Dorian also took me through a Yates-style high-intensity workout at Gold's Gym Venice. We trained back, we filmed it, and it's posted to our Clips channel, so you can check that out. It's linked in the show notes caption. Before we begin, I'd like to emphasize that this podcast is separate from my teaching and research roles at Stanford. It is, however, part of my desire and effort to bring zero cost to consumer information about science and science-related tools to the general public. In keeping with that theme, today's episode does include sponsors. And now for my discussion with Dorian Yates. The Dorian Yates. Welcome.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Big fan for many years. Thanks to you and thanks to Mike Menser and a few, at the time, real iconoclasts. I trained differently than everyone around me told me to. And while I never became a competitive athlete at anywhere near the level that you did, certainly, it got me the results I wanted so much faster. I feel super healthy and great at 50. And I really want to talk about this high intensity, low-ish volume training that really can be credited to you. Because for those that don't know, the community that you come from, there have been people who have been big proponents of long sessions, many hours in the gym. At the opposite extreme, there have been people such as Mike Menser who have been proponents of very brief, very high intensity, even one set to failure, and that's it. And you brought things into some sense of moderation.
This is almost like a hybrid,
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah, exactly.
between the purist, HIT, which, I mean, I didn't come up with the idea. The guy that really initiated the whole thing was Arthur Jones, who was the guy that made the Nautilus machines, and then he passed it on, right? And Mike Menser made it more popular because Mike Menser was American champion, Mr. Universe, and he was in the magazines. And I read Arthur Jones's books, and I think I'm a logical thinker, so it made sense to me. But if it made sense to me and it didn't work out practically, who cares, you know? So, like yourself, I was kind of training like that, and everyone was telling me this is not the way to do it. You need to train more often, do more sets, and so on. So I tried it, and the whole thing with my career, it's a bit like a science experiment in a way, that I documented everything. So I've got every workout. The first time I stepped in the gym and said, seriously, okay, I'm going to train, and I want to be a competitive bodybuilder, and this is how I'm going to change my life, and maybe I'm going to get a gym or something like that. That was about it at the time. But I said, okay, so I'm tracking everything. My progress is going really well. I'm training like 3 times a week for maybe 45 minutes an hour. But I'm working as well. I'm doing construction. I'm doing some heavy jobs. So this is taking energy. Going well. Okay, then let me try it. Let me jack it up. I'm training 4 times a week to do a little bit more. What happened? Nothing. That's what happened. Everything stopped. For 3 or 4 weeks, I cut it back, started growing again. So I didn't really need to learn that lesson too many times. And I got to be British champion. I got to be turned pro. And I read everything that Mike Menser wrote in the magazines and everything like that. And got to meet him when I came out here. And we discussed training and said, okay, what are you doing? You know, I'm warming up, whatever it takes, a couple of sets. I'm doing a set to failure. And then I'm resting 2 or 3 minutes, dropping it down 10%. Maybe I'm going to failure again. So I'm hitting that nail in twice just to make sure it's in there. So Mike said, why don't we try cutting back to 1 set to failure? So I started that around 91, 92. And I feel like I got another level of growth from that. So people say, oh, Dorian doesn't do HIT. I don't know what category you want to put it in, but it's probably somewhere between conventional bodybuilding and the extreme of HIT that Mike Mensa was doing and Arthur Jones, which would be perfect for the average person. I mean, Arthur Jones was doing like a whole body workout a couple of times a week. That was his initial recommendation. And I agree, for the average person, that's great because you want to build a certain level of muscle mass for your health. But I was a competitive bodybuilder, so you got to be concerned a little bit like, you know, side delts, rear delts. Average person could do one shoulder exercise, it would be enough. So you need to do a little bit more as a competitive bodybuilder. So somebody came up with the moniker Blood and Guts. They saw my training, that looks like Blood and Guts. So that's what we called it. So it's high intensity training, a lot less than the other guys were doing probably. But maybe the HIT purists will say, oh, it's not. But it is what it is. And it's all, I've got every workout written down so people can see what I did. And call it what you will. But, you know, it was briefer than everyone else I was competing against. And it had an effect. Although not everyone followed what I was doing, but prior to myself being successful, it was like 6 times a week. Some people were doing twice a day. Not very often, to be honest. There's a lot in the magazines. Arnold promoted that a lot, right? But if you look at Arnold, he was probably a full size when he was 21, 22. He was huge. How did he get there? He was bench pressing 500. He was doing deadlifts, he was doing squats, whatever. He built the foundation. And I believe competitive bodybuilders back then, they kind of use the weights as a calorie burner as well. So they got the muscle mass, then they do more volume and more sets and more reps. And obviously this is helping to maintain the muscle while at the same time burning a lot of calories. So I said, wouldn't it be better to do the weight training just to build muscle and maintain muscle and do some cardio exercise to burn extra calories, so then you'll be able to recover properly. So that was my approach. So it probably falls somewhere in between the two camps, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember trying the one set to failure, a couple warm-ups, one set to failure, you pre-exhaust, leg extensions into leg press. And it occurred to me after about a year or two that I needed to do a little bit more. I mentioned that because I think I'm like most people in the sense that, let me frame this right, I could get certain movements to really thrash the muscle that I needed to with 1 or 2 sets. But if there isn't really good mind-muscle connection and fiber recruitment, you might need a bit more.
It's possible, yeah. I mean, none of this is written in stone. When people come to train with me, I said our objective is to get an exercise and go to real muscular failure. We'll need to get there safely, so we do a couple of sets to warm up. But if somehow you don't feel, or I don't feel, you nailed it in that set, let's do another one. You know, there's no law. We can't do a little bit more. So you are correct in saying that somebody that's very experienced, they get that mind-muscle connection where you can just link in and you can fully destroy it. So it depends on the person. But the idea is to not do more than is necessary, because then you're going to find it harder to recover. And the process is stimulate, right? So you've got to train, you've got to overload. And during this process, you're not growing, you're creating damage, stress to the muscle that then has to recover and then overcompensate. So 2 things need to be in place. It needs to be sufficient intensity or overload, or there'll be no reaction. And then you need to recover from that. And let's just put it straight out there, man. You know, there's a big difference between somebody using anabolic steroids and somebody that's not. So somebody that's using can recover from that process more quickly than somebody that isn't. So I feel I should always say this, because when you're looking at a champion bodybuilder, how he trains, and you're a young guy trying to build up, that's probably not appropriate for you right now. That guy's already got a size and is refining for competition or something. So that's the idea, to do enough to stimulate, but not more than that, because this is an overload you got to recover from. So you got to recover before you grow as well. So you don't want to go back to the gym before that whole process is has taken place. So I use some simple analogies sometimes when people are training with me. Like, we're going in now, we're knocking a wall down, right? We're rehabbing your house, we're knocking a wall down, and the guys need to come down with the bricks. So they need materials and they need to do it, but they're halfway through building that wall and you come and knock it down again. We're not getting anywhere, you know? So that's the process that you kind of have to understand.
I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge one of our sponsors, David. David makes a protein bar unlike any other. It has 28 grams of protein, only 150 calories, and 0 grams of sugar. That's right, 28 grams of protein, and 75% of its calories come from protein. That's 50% higher than the next closest protein bar. These bars from David also taste amazing. Right now, my favorite flavor is the new cinnamon roll flavor, but I also like the chocolate chip cookie dough flavor, and I also like the salted peanut butter flavor. Basically, I like all the flavors. They're all delicious. Also, big news, David bars are now back in stock. They were sold out for several months because they are that popular, but they are now back in stock. By eating a David bar, I'm able to get 28 grams of protein and the calories of a snack, which makes it very easy for me to meet my protein goals of 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight per day, and to do so without eating excess calories. I generally eat a David bar most afternoons, and I always keep them with me when I'm away from home or traveling because they're incredibly convenient to get enough protein. As I mentioned, they're incredibly delicious, and given that 28 grams of protein, they're pretty filling for just 150 calories, so they're great between meals as well. If you'd like to try David, you can go to davidprotein.com/Huberman. Again, that's davidprotein.com/Huberman. Today's episode is also brought to us by Juve. Juve makes medical-grade red light therapy devices. Now, if there's one thing that I've consistently emphasized on this podcast, it is the incredible impact that light can have on our biology. Now, in addition to sunlight, red light and near-infrared light sources have been shown to have positive effects on improving numerous aspects of cellular and organ health, including faster muscle recovery, improved skin health and wound healing, improvements in acne, reduced pain and inflammation, even mitochondrial function, and improving vision itself. What sets Juve lights apart and why they're my preferred red light therapy device is that they use clinically proven wavelengths, meaning specific wavelengths of red light and near-infrared light in combination to trigger the optimal cellular adaptations. Personally, I use the Juve whole body panel about 3 to 4 times a week, and I use the Juve handheld light both at home and when I travel. If you'd like to try Juve, you can go to Juve, spelled JOOVV.com/Huberman. Juve is offering an exclusive discount to all Huberman Lab listeners with up to $400 off Juve products. Again, that's Juve, spelled JOOVV.com/Huberman, get up to $400 off. One of the really kind of unfortunate things about resistance training is that it fills the muscle with blood temporarily, in part because of some quotes that came from Arnold in Pumping Iron. The so-called pump it's an illusion, right? It's transient. And while it can be helpful in letting you know that you targeted a given muscle correctly, I think people get addicted to that feeling, but they're not realizing that the damage to the muscle tissue that then is allowed to recover is what makes the muscle actually larger when you're outside of the gym.
A pump is just a temporary extra blood flow to the area that feels good. You're pumped up, you feel tight, but you can get a lightweight and get a great pump. It's not going to stimulate any growth, so don't be fooled by the pump. It's nice and it's part of the process, but you've got to overload the muscle. You've got to give it more than it's used to. The body does not want to change. It wants to keep status quo. So you've got to give it a bloody good reason, as we would say in England, to change, right? So you've got to put more stress on the body than it's used to. Otherwise, you won't adapt. So even if it's like, you know, half a pound more or 1 rep more, it's got to be something more that the body says, hey, this stress, I can't handle it. I need to reinforce myself and adapt to this stress. So next time, it won't be so stressful. That's basically the process. So, and it can't be linear forever, right? Maybe in the first year of training, the first 18 months, you just go in, like I put 20, 25 pounds on in the first 18 months that I was training and natural as well. So, you know, it becomes a case of diminishing returns though. And at some point, you can't just keep going up like this. So I tell people train real hard for like 5 or 6 weeks and then come down for 2 weeks, maybe submaximal.
So you'll sort of sawtooth it like that, hard for 5-6 weeks, then back off. And during that 2 weeks, are you telling people to stay out of the gym entirely?
No, I'm telling them you can go in and do some lightweight, but nowhere near failure, blood flow, keep the maintenance. If you want to take a week off, I think it's good a couple of times a year. A lot of guys, when I had a gym, the guys, I'm stuck on this and that. I said, okay, take a week off. Wow, no, what do you mean? I said, man, just take a week off, yeah. Come back in a week and tell me how you feel. And I came back and I was stronger. I was like, yeah, no shit, man. So because you've rested, you let your body rest and rebuild. So that'd be a lesson to you.
So if I could travel back in time, I wouldn't have called the movie Pumping Iron. I would have called it Stress and Adapt. Stress, stress, recover, adapt.
Not quite so sexy.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like I'm coming.
But that whole notion of the pump, plus this idea that many hours in the gym is what's required. I think it kept a lot of the general public out of resistance training. Yeah. I think now that's changed, and fortunately, because I think it is very beneficial. If we could get a little granular about training and recovery, I think it'd be helpful for people. I realize that you laid out the top contour really nicely. So for a person who's natural, not taking hormone replacement therapy or anabolics, you think 2, maybe 3 whole body sessions to start out to learn the movements? Is that doing 1 or 2 sets to failure? What does that look like for the raw beginner?
A raw beginner, first of all, you need to learn how to do the movements correctly before thinking about going to failure. So it'll be a certain period of time learning to do the exercise correctly, putting some kind of idea in their head of what's going on. What do the pecs do? Bring your arms down and across the body. What do your lats do? They bring up, around, down, and back. So you'd be amazed, like, even if you have to pro bodybuilder, some of them don't know, like, why they're doing what they're doing, what's the mechanics involved. And I get them to do light sets, very perfect. Do you feel that? Do you feel how it contracts when you lat and you squeeze and you contract? Yeah, I feel it. Okay, now you've got it, but you've got to try to maintain that when it gets really hard, because we're going against the natural mechanics of the body here, right? Because as I say, we're doing chest, yeah? Trying to isolate the pecs, there's some delts involved and triceps. And work that, or we're working legs, we're working back. The body normally doesn't work like that. It works as a unit, right? If you throw something, you don't do that from your tricep, right? It'll be from your foot, through the hips, through the shoulder, whole body thing. So when the exercise gets really hard, your brain is going to try to recruit or change the exercise to make it easier. So I got to get people to override that instinct. Just stick with the form until we get to the point where you can't do anymore and understand. That's why I get them to do light stuff at first, to really feel it, understand, explain what's going on. A couple of weeks after that, we can start pushing to failure. Until I had a guy recently that we had a business meeting, and he told me he was diabetic and had liver problems and he was overweight and this and that. I gave him a challenge. I said, he trained with me for a month. I'll fix all that shit, yeah? Oh, but my doctor this and that. I said, listen. He trained with me 3 times a week for about 45 minutes. After 1 month, obviously I changed his diet as well, basically for a short period of time, very low carbs. After 1 month, he was not in the diabetic zone. He was out of the pre-diabetic zone, he was in the normal range. Great. And his liver function that was 3 times the normal amount, liver enzymes, was back to normal. I told him, check it out, you got a fatty liver. So yeah, I had a fatty liver. I said, I know. He said, my doctor told me not to eat fat. I'm like, man, do you know how long, at least I don't know here, but in England, how long an MD, a doctor, spends studying nutrition?
Yeah, it's trivial.
One afternoon, 2 or 3 hours. And you can learn nothing. So the doctor was telling me he's got a fatty liver, to stop eating fat. I said, that's absolutely the worst advice you could get. Because the reason you've got fatty liver is because uncontrolled blood sugar. So we get your blood sugar down. 1 month, his liver was normal, his blood sugar was normal. He lost like 5-6 kilos of body fat just in a month, and we're doing 3 times a week.
Whole body.
We split it up actually into 3 workouts, so he's hitting everything once a week.
When our mutual friend, you know better than I did, the now deceased, unfortunately, Mike Menzer, told me to train each body part once per week. Yeah. First, I thought he was crazy. So legs once a week, calves once a week, maybe twice for some people with the calves, but shoulders and arms and chest and back on 3 separate days. Legs, chest, back, shoulders and arms. Right. I thought he was crazy, but then I thought about it, and the chest and back workout, you're indirectly targeting the arms. Yep. Legs is if you do them right, is a whole body experience.
And a lot of stress on your nervous system, which has to recover independently of whatever muscle group you're training. If you do legs, really to failure, there's a lot of stress on your nervous system as well. So that also has to recover. That's why I say after 6 weeks, I've just noticed with myself and many people, it seems like you hit a plateau there. So I'm trying to push through it, come down, take a rest, and go again later.
So I know that your opinion on real world results versus laboratory studies, but these days, let me just put something out there. I'd like to see your response. These days, people will talk a lot about, okay, the studies or muscle biopsies show you train a muscle and stimulate hypertrophy growth, and then muscle protein synthesis peaks, 48 hours later, which means that you can hit the muscle again, ideally 3 days later or 2 days later. Okay. I tried that because I thought, hey, listen, I'm a scientist, I'll try it. And I immediately started going backwards with my progress. This was a few years ago. And went back to training each thing directly once per week. And where there's indirect stuff, arms getting hit once indirectly because of a chest and back workout on a separate day, went right back to progress again. And so, I'm a scientist trained to do science. So how do you think about something where in a laboratory you can see something like protein synthesis peaks 48 hours later, therefore train every 72 hours versus the real world phenomenon?
It's all very interesting, but if it doesn't work in practicality, what's it worth? I hear this a lot now about this science-based training, but I actually don't know what science they're talking about. Some meta-studies, I think, but how were those studies carried out? With whom? And so on and so on. I don't know. I know the KCBHL study where he put on 65 pounds of muscle, verified in a month by training like less than about an hour a week, I think.
Those are whole body.
I think it was whole body stuff. And yes, he was very underweight because he wasn't on anything, and then he got sick, so he was underweight. So he's building back muscle, but he wouldn't build it back without much stimulus. So 65 pound of muscle, although it was muscle memory, let's say, had been that big before, but he put it on in a month, and you compare that with Arnold that dieted down to 210, I think, to do this film, Stay Hungry. Then he went back up to 230 for the Mr. Olympia, but that took him like 3 months. So you can compare the two. So when the people talk about these science-based studies and you shouldn't train to failure, it's better to keep reps in reserve, I don't know which studies they're talking about. I'm not saying they're not out there, but I'm not familiar with them. I'm not familiar with how they carried out the studies. But if it doesn't work in practicality, does it really matter? It doesn't
often, I've spent some time with these, and you might not be surprised to learn that a lot of times it's, we got some college students, they're doing leg extensions, we're looking at, biopsies of the quadriceps, this kind of thing. Rarely is it the kind of compound movements, multi-joint movements, sometimes, but not always. Well, look, my experience with the high-intensity, lowish volume training has been, I'll say it's not just about gaining muscle. I'm now 50. I know you're almost 64.
Yep,
looking amazing. We'll talk some more about longevity stuff in a bit. But I have to say part of it is also that if one trains the way that you're describing, each muscle once per week, focusing on intensity, not volume, and so forth, 6 weeks or so, then backing off for 2 weeks, you also find that in your peer group, you're not the one always complaining about pain, and you have energy for other things, which we'll get back to. Unless you're a competitive bodybuilder, most people, including myself, need energy to tend to life and want to be able to enjoy, it's not the soreness, it's the constant aches and pains that come from overtraining, I think, that most people don't have to live with, but think they do.
It depends on your goals, yeah? But I really believe the average person, that wants to get health benefits from bodybuilding, weight training, resistance, whatever you want to call it, right? They have a guy that's 40 or 50 or 60, guy or a lady, whatever. The idea is if you could, because you've lost muscle mass slowly since maybe 1% a year since you're 40, right? And this is affecting your health, your metabolism, your ability to process sugar, many things, bone strength. And the number one thing that I hear from people is, I don't really have time for that. I have a business, I have a family. I said, if you could give me 45 minutes twice a week, that's all you need to do. Okay, you need to eat properly and everything like that. That's all you need to do for the average person. If you took 8 to 10 exercises that covered your whole body and you did it twice a week, that would be enough for the average person. 1 for chest, 1 or 2 for back,
Oh
1 or
my
2 for
god,
legs. If you want to do
bro.
some bicep curls and some triceps, you can do it, but you're doing pressing anyway. So for the average person, that would actually be enough. And it's not theory because I've done it with people. Like I'm saying, this gentleman that came along, we put 45 minutes in, nearly an hour, 3 times a week, because I had him doing cardio as well. Well, guess how long the cardio was? 6 minutes. 6 minutes.
You have pedal hard.
We're doing sprints. Like on an air bike, it's my favorite because it engages every muscle, push, pull, legs. If you do a 20-second all out, and you can see how much you got on the side of the thing, you can see how much watts you're generating. So now you have a target to hit or exceed every time. So do a minute and a half warm up, whatever. Feel warm, all out, balls out, like the devil's chasing you for 20 seconds. First one's tough, it's okay. Go down slowly for a minute, do the second one all out. The second one's really tough, The third one is, I've never met anybody that wants to do one after the third one, because literally you can't breathe. And the benefits from that, again, I think there's a book called 1 Minute Cardio. It's a bit tricky because it's not really 1 minute. It's 1 minute of sprints, but it's 6 minutes in total. And they compared that to 45 minutes of steady cardio on a treadmill or whatever it is. And the results are more or less the same. So what do you want to do? You want to spend 6 minutes or you want to spend 45 minutes? I'd rather do the 6 minutes. I do a bit of long cardio as well myself because I like biking in the mountains and stuff. But if you did that twice a week, along with some weight training, that would be amazing. You change your life, literally, with that and a good diet. So the whole time thing, excuses, it's not relevant. I'm not listening. You don't need a lot of time.
Well, what I love about you is that you've done things at the ultra elite level within bodybuilding. But the advice that you're giving right now is very practical for the everyday person. And I'm not a psychologist, but I'm going to venture a hypothesis here, which is that some of that has to do with the fact that you grew up blue collar background from Birmingham, working full time while building out your bodybuilding career. You didn't come to it with a briefcase full of cash and have the opportunity to just say, well, how much training can you do? Well, let's figure it out. Like, you had to be very practical. And my guess is that you had to be very practical about recovery and nutrition as well. You probably, I'm guessing there was a point in your life where you couldn't afford, grass-fed meat shipped in from south of France. And this, I'm not saying you do that now.
Let me tell you a story, man. When I was British champion, that was a big thing back then, British champion, right? 3,000 people in the audience, packed out. We had buses coming from my gym, all this stuff, air horns. British bodybuilding crowds are not, they're pretty rowdy. I
think the Brits around any sport get pretty rowdy.
Pretty rowdy. If you see boxing in Vegas and it's a British fighter, they take over the whole place. So anyway, this great accolade, I'm British champion now. And I went home. I got no car. I'm living in a council estate. It's like projects, council estate. I got no carpet in my bedroom. I don't even have a proper bed. I just got a mattress, I got a TV that barely works. And I got a trophy. I'm like, wow, look, I'm British champion, but nobody gives a fuck, really. Like, I do, and people that's in the bodybuilding community, but this hasn't translated into anything yet. It took me about 5 years of really, 100% dedication for me to be turned pro. And the ironic thing is, I guess, like when you're starting, you've got nothing. Nobody's very interested and nobody wants to help you. When you become successful, people want to help you because they want to help themselves, which is fair enough. It's a transaction, but until then, no. So I got my first car when I was 25. All my friends were driving 18, 19. But the funny thing is, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I knew I was on this mission. And this in itself was so powerful. Like, nobody else had this mission that I was doing was to change my life, basically. And bodybuilding was the vehicle. And I think something that really helped me is I'm an avid reader. I have been since I was about 10 years old, and I can take in a lot of information on a subject if I'm very interested. I'll almost get obsessed with it for a while, and then I might just say, I forget about that. I'll go interested in something else. So all the guys that I was training with, they were like just watching videos and listening to other guys in the gym. I was reading Mike Mensa, I was reading Arthur Jones. I was trying to figure it out for myself, which means you need a very independent kind of personality. So yeah, let me try to do a bit more. Doesn't work. Finished, And the fact that I've got all this, every single workout from 1983 to 1997 written down, all the diets, later on when I'm using anabolics, what I'm using and how long, and all this stuff so I could analyze it, see what's working and what's not working. A lot of guys were like shooting in the dark, hoping they're going to hit something, but they don't. And I didn't have time to waste. This was a mission. I didn't have skills, I didn't have a family, all this stuff. So bodybuilding was my road to change my life. Where it was going at first, I didn't know, but I knew it was going somewhere. I knew I could be very good at it.
Did you have the sense, even before all this, that perhaps you were different or that you were destined to pursue something?
100%.
What's your earliest recollection of knowing that you were going to aspire to some very high peak?
Well, the first thing I was into was Bruce Lee, right? So, Bruce Lee, and even I was impressed with his physique then. Now I look compared to a bodybuilder, it's very lean, but the abs and everything, had that poster on the wall, with the cuts down there and everything. So I was doing push-ups. Just in my last year at school, I started getting bodybuilding magazines and doing a bit of weight training. So there was that then. I left home at 16, I just didn't have the lifestyle to pursue it. And for some reason, I'm not doing this. I said, I'm not doing this until I can do it properly. And I always knew I was different, I guess, but I didn't know why and I didn't know where it was going, but I knew it was going somewhere. And it's a strange feeling through my whole process. I feel like I've done it before, almost, like it was destined, I wasn't a surprise. In the earlier years, it's like, I just knew I got to just put everything into this. I got to put everything into it, and I can't let anything distract me, 100% into this. So yeah, I knew I was destined for something. When I started doing bodybuilding, I was so this is it. Yeah, I don't know if you heard the story, but I got a little bit of trouble. Just rowdy guys, really. We got picked up on the street at the wrong time because there were some street riots in Birmingham, which we weren't involved with, but wrong place, wrong time. Got sent to a detention centre, and in there they had weights, and there was 300 guys, and I was nearly the strongest guy in there. The only guy who was stronger than me was like 50, 60 pounds heavier. And I was really lean, I had abs and everything. Everyone was like, wow, the physique. Even the prison officers in there were like, you should do something with this. So don't worry, I'm going to. So that was another one like, hey, you've got something here. There's a crossroads here. And I was like, I never want to be in a place like this again and lose my freedom. You literally become a number and you're told when to get up and when to do this. And
those places suck.
And I saw people in there that I knew they were destined to this is their life. Even I didn't care. Yeah, I know, but I don't give a fuck. I might be in jail, but this is just the life I've chosen. Like, well, good luck with that, man. It's not for me, So that again was like, hey, you need to do something with this. And when I left there, I didn't start training. I was like, I got to get a job. I got to get an apartment. I got to get stability. And when I did, I was like, right, I started my bodybuilding journey. Write it down today, the date. I still got it, man.
What's in those notebooks? Everything from what you did for warm up, how you felt going into
all
there.
Sets and reps, warm up, how I was feeling that day. Some days I was feeling overtrained and tired. Even though I was training 3 days a week, sometimes I had to back off the intensity because of work and stuff like that. But how I was feeling, and it's interesting if I look at my books over the years. The first ones are quite childish, got these little go for it, mass and power.